The sky over the desert colony of Epsilon 9 was burning red that night. A small ship fell from the clouds, leaving a trail of smoke like a dying comet. The humans in the outpost watched silently. No one went to help. Crashes were common here, and everyone feared what came from the sky. Inside the broken ship lay a little alien girl, Lyra. Her body was small, thin, and covered with soft blue skin. Her right leg was missing from birth, replaced by a weak metal limb that barely worked. Her kind, the Zerithians Wirand, were known for their beauty and power. But Lyra was different. Her people had called her incomplete, unworthy. Even before the crash, she had been rejected by her own world. When Lyra woke up, the ship's alarms were gone. The silence scared her more than pain. She tried to crawl out, dragging her broken leg through the sand. The air burned her lungs, but she didn't stop. She wanted to see the stars again. But above her, only the red dust of Epsilon 9 moved. From far away, a man watched through a telescope. Commander Raylan Holt, a human engineer and former soldier, lived alone in a rusted observatory. He was known by others as the Ghost Mechanic, a man who fixed machines but never spoke to people. When he saw the crash, something in him changed. He grabbed his coat and started his rover. Meanwhile, the colony guards arrived first. They surrounded the wreckage with their rifles. "Another alien," one of them said coldly. "Check if it's alive. We can sell what's left." Lyra heard them and froze. She didn't understand their words, but their tone was enough. Fear filled her small chest. As the guards opened the ship's door, light fell on Lyra's face. Her wide silver eyes blinked against the glare. One guard stepped back in disgust. "It's deformed," he muttered. "Just scrap metal." They turned away. No one offered a hand. The desert wind howled around her like laughter. Just then, a second engine's roar echoed in the distance. The guards looked up as a small rover stopped beside them. Commander Raylan jumped out. His coat was covered in dust, his face hidden behind old goggles. "Step away from the wreck," he ordered calmly. "This is colony property," a guard protested. "Finders keepers," Raylan's voice hardened. "She's not property," the guards laughed. "You planning to keep it?" "Look at her, half machine, half mistake." Raylan ignored them. He knelt beside Lyra, his movements gentle. She flinched when his gloved hand reached out. For the first time, she saw a face not twisted in hatred or disgust. He didn't look afraid. He didn't call her broken. He only whispered, "You're hurt. Let me help you." The guards didn't stop him. They didn't care enough to. When Raylan lifted the small alien in his arms, her light skin shimmered faintly. She tried to speak, her words soft and trembling. "You help?" He nodded once. Yes. That single word, simple and human, became her first memory of kindness. As Raylan drove back to his observatory, the stars began to appear again. Lyra, weak and half-conscious, looked through the window. She saw Earth's moon far in the distance, white and peaceful. She didn't know this man, this strange human who had saved her, but something inside her heart felt safe. Behind them, the wreckage of her ship sank into the red sand. The colony lights faded. No one followed. No one cared. But somewhere in the darkness, something else had seen her fall. Something ancient watching from the orbital stations. A signal was already being sent. Subject Lyra survived. Human contact detected. Prepare enforcement. Neither Raylan nor Lyra knew it yet. But their small act of kindness had already broken one of the oldest galactic laws. No human shall bond with an alien mind. Lyra opened her eyes to the sound of soft humming. Warm light filled the small metal room. She lay on a table surrounded by tools, wires, and screens that flickered with quiet life. The smell of oil and smoke filled the air. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she saw him, the human who had saved her. Raylan Holt sat nearby, cleaning a metal brace that glowed faintly blue. His movements were careful, almost gentle. When he noticed she was awake, he smiled slightly. "You're safe," he said. "No one will hurt you here." Lyra didn't understand all his words, but she felt his calmness. Her own world had never spoken to her like that. On her planet, weakness meant shame. But this man, this stranger, was fixing the leg she had always been ashamed of. Raylan adjusted his old robotic arm, one he had built himself years ago after losing his real one in a war. "We both have metal parts," he said quietly as if talking to himself. Maybe that makes us less different than we think. For days, he worked to rebuild her leg. He didn't ask where she came from or why she had crashed. He didn't treat her like a specimen. He taught her small words in English: water, food, friend. And she taught him soft Zerithian sounds that almost sounded like music. But outside the observatory, danger was growing. The colony command had received the same message that echoed across the galaxy, a warning from the Interstellar Council. The law was clear. Humans are forbidden to form emotional or neural bonds with alien species. Long ago, after the Terran Wars, humanity had agreed never to share consciousness with other species again. Such bonds were said to cause madness, and sometimes death. When the guards reported what Raylan had done, the council marked his name. A bounty was placed, arrest on sight. Inside the observatory, Raylan didn't know yet. He was too busy helping Lyra learn how to walk. Slowly, he said, holding her hand as she took her first step on the new mechanical leg. The metal moved smoothly, powered by energy cells he'd crafted overnight. Lyra trembled but smiled for the first time in her life. "Walk," she whispered proudly. Raylan nodded. "Yes, you're doing great." But when she looked up at him, her silver eyes began to glow faintly, just a flicker at first. The light pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The air between them shifted like static before a storm. "Lyra?" he asked, confused. She blinked rapidly, frightened. I feel you," she whispered. "Inside head." He stepped back, alarmed. "What do you mean?" Her eyes dimmed and tears filled them. "You sad. You miss home," Raylan froze. He hadn't told her that. No one had ever known. He stared at her, realizing the impossible. Their minds were connecting. Not through machines, not through words, but through emotion itself. The bond had begun. That night, Raylan sat alone in the dark, thinking. His computer blinked with warning lights. Someone was trying to trace his location. He knew what it meant. The council was coming. But when he looked at Lyra, sleeping peacefully with her repaired leg glowing faintly blue, he couldn't bring himself to turn her in. "She deserves more than pain," he whispered to himself. "And maybe, so do I." The next morning, Lyra woke up to find him packing supplies, food, energy cores, and an old pistol. "We're leaving," he said. "Leave?" she asked softly. "They'll come for us soon, but I won't let them take you." She hesitated, then reached out her hand and small, trembling but full of trust. He took it without hesitation. As they stepped outside, the desert wind hit their faces. The sun was rising, painting the sky gold. In that moment, neither of them knew how far their bond would go, or how dangerous it had become. Far above, in the orbital station, an officer watched the two tiny figures moving across the sand. "Human contact confirmed," she said coldly. "Activate pursuit drones." And as the first black ships began to descend from the clouds, the message repeated across the stars. "The human has bonded with the alien child. Law 9.7 is broken. Eliminate both." Raylan looked up, his instincts sensing the danger before it came. "They've found us," he muttered. Lyra's voice trembled. "Why they hate?" He glanced at her, determination hardening his face. "Because they're afraid," he said. "But I'm not." The wind roared louder, carrying the sound of engines. The chase had begun. The desert stretched endlessly under a burning orange sky. The air shimmered with heat and the ground cracked like broken glass. In the distance, two small figures moved, Raylan and Lyra, leaving a trail of footprints behind them. Raylan drove the old rover through the dunes, its engines coughing from the strain. Every few minutes he checked the radar. A blinking red dot followed them, closing fast. The council's pursuit drones were already on their tail. Lyra sat quietly beside him, her silver eyes scanning the horizon. She could feel his fear, not from his words, but from the strange new connection between them. The bond had grown stronger since the night before. She could sense his heartbeat, his worry, even his memories. Flashes of war, loss, and loneliness. "Raylan," she said softly. "You are afraid." He didn't deny it. "Yeah," he muttered. "But I've run before. I'll do it again." The rover rattled as it climbed over a dune. Behind them, three dark shapes appeared in the sky, metal spheres glowing red. The drones. They locked onto the rover's heat signature and began to descend. Raylan cursed under his breath and turned the wheel sharply. "Hold on," The rover dove down the slope, sand flying everywhere. Lyra screamed as the vehicle bounced and slid. One of the drones fired. A beam of blue plasma shot across the desert, barely missing them. The ground exploded in a wave of fire. Raylan gritted his teeth. They're faster, but not smarter. He opened a hidden panel beside the steering console and pressed a sequence of buttons. The rover's rear compartment opened, revealing a cluster of homemade EMP grenades. Old tech from his soldier days. He threw one out the window. A moment later, a white flash filled the air. One drone went dark and crashed into the sand, burning. Nice shot, Lyra gasped, her voice full of awe. Raylan smiled faintly. One down. 2 to go, but the others adapted quickly, spreading apart. They fired again, hitting the ground near the rover. The shockwave flipped the vehicle on its side. Metal screamed. Dust filled the air. Raylan pulled Lyra close as the rover rolled down a slope and came to a stop upside down. His ears rang from the crash. For a moment, everything was silent except for the crackling of flames. Lyra coughed weakly. Raylan, you hurt? He groaned, pushing himself up. I've had worse. Above them, the 2 remaining drones circled like vultures. One of them lowered its scanners, searching the wreckage. Raylan pulled his pistol and whispered, "Stay low." He fired. The bullet hit the drone's sensor, cracking it. The machine turned, furious. It charged its plasma cannon, ready to finish them. Then something strange happened. Lyra stood up. Her hands glowed with soft blue light. The markings on her skin, faint lines that had always seemed decorative, now burned like molten silver. Lyra, what are you doing? Raylan shouted, her voice was calm. Protect. The air around her vibrated. The drone's systems flickered, confused. Its targeting display went blank. Sparks flew. Then with a single burst of energy, the drone exploded in midair. Raylan stared in disbelief. You did that? Lyra looked at her glowing hands, shocked. I didn't know I can. The last drone backed off for a moment, scanning from a distance. Raylan grabbed her arm. We need to move now. They ran through the dunes, leaving the smoking rover behind. The bond between them pulsed like electricity, stronger, deeper, alive. Raylan felt her exhaustion in his own body. She felt his determination as if it were hers. They reached an old canyon, a place Raylan once used as a hideout during the war. They hid under a rock ledge, breathing heavily. Lyra looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the twilight. They won't stop, will they? She whispered. No, Raylan said. They'll keep coming until one of us is gone. She hesitated. Then why you help me? You can run alone, safe. He looked at her, his face hard but kind. Because once, someone saved me too. I didn't deserve it either. The silence between them was heavy, filled with understanding. Above them, the last drone sent a signal back to the orbital station. 2 targets escaped. Alien displays unstable energy surge. Request reinforcements. Far away, the Council's command center lit up with warning lights. A voice spoke coldly. The bond is advancing. If not contained, it could spread. Deploy hunters. And in the canyon below, Raylan looked at Lyra's faintly glowing eyes and whispered, whatever they're afraid of, maybe it's already happening. The wind howled again, carrying the sound of distant engines. The hunt was far from over. The night in the canyon was silent except for the faint humming of the wind. Stars stretched across the dark sky, shining like distant memories. Raylan sat near the campfire, repairing his pistol with shaking hands. His arm still hurt from the crash, but his thoughts were far heavier than the pain. Across from him, Lyra sat quietly, hugging her knees. The faint blue lines on her skin still glowed, though dimmer now. She was afraid to look at her hands, the same hands that had destroyed a drone without touching it. What happened to me? She whispered softly, almost to herself. Raylan glanced up. You tell me, he said. That light, it wasn't any tech I've seen before. Lyra shook her head. I don't know. My people, the Zerithians, said I was born broken. My body could not hold our light. They said I was empty. Her voice trembled. Maybe they were wrong. Raylan stared at the fire. Or maybe they were scared. She looked at him, confused. Scared? He nodded. Sometimes the thing they call broken is the one thing they don't understand. Silence fell again. The fire flickered, throwing soft shadows on the canyon walls. Lyra looked up at the stars, her home somewhere among them, and tears formed in her silver eyes. I had no place there, and now, No place here. Raylan's voice softened. You've got one now. Lyra blinked, unsure if she understood. With you? He gave a small nod. With me. The bond between them pulsed again, faint but warm. It wasn't just a connection of minds anymore. It was something deeper. He felt her sadness, her confusion, her loneliness, and she felt his buried pain. Without warning, a faint vibration ran through the canyon. Raylan froze. The sand near his boots trembled. He stood up quickly, scanning the shadows. They've found us again, he muttered. But it wasn't the Council's drones this time. A small black sphere floated down silently and projected a blue hologram. The face of an alien woman, tall and elegant, with eyes that glowed brighter than Lyra's. Lyra of Zareth, the hologram said coldly. You have broken sacred code. You have bonded with a human. Lyra's heart froze. Mother? She whispered in shock. Raylan turned to her. That's your mother? Lyra nodded slowly. She is High Matron of Zareth Prime. The hologram's voice was sharp. The bond you formed is dangerous. It can merge your consciousness with the humans. If it grows, neither of you will remain yourselves. You will become one, a new mind forbidden by law. Raylan stepped forward. Then why do you care? She was dying. I saved her. The hologram turned toward him. You interfered with forces you cannot understand, human. The Zarithian light is not meant for your kind. You will destroy her and yourself. Lyra shook her head. No, he saved me. I feel his heart. It is kind. Feelings are not truth, her mother said coldly. The bond consumes. It begins with emotion. Ends with madness. The hologram flickered, and the matron's final words echoed through the canyon. If you value your life, human, and the bond before it consumes the stars themselves. Then the sphere vanished into dust. Raylan and Lyra stood in silence. The fire crackled softly as if pretending nothing had happened. Lyra looked at him terrified. She says, we will disappear. Become one, Raylan rubbed his face. I don't believe that. Maybe they just don't want to see humans and Zarithians connected. Maybe the bond threatens their control. Lyra hesitated. But what if she's right? He met her eyes. Then we face it together. The bond pulsed again, brighter this time, like a heartbeat shared between two souls. For a brief second, Raylan saw through Lyra's eyes, her memories of being called useless, her lonely nights under alien skies, her hope that someone would see her as more than broken. And Lyra saw through his, the battlefield, the screaming soldiers, the day he lost his arm, the day humanity gave up believing in mercy. Their minds touched, not just thoughts but memories, feelings, and light. The canyon around them seemed to glow faintly with blue energy. Then suddenly Raylan gasped and fell to his knees. The light around them flickered. Lyra, stop, he groaned. It's too strong. She grabbed his hand, panicked. I didn't mean to. The light dimmed slowly and the connection loosened. They both breathed heavily, drained but alive. Raylan looked at her weakly. If that's what they're afraid of, maybe they're right to be scared. Lyra looked down, trembling. Then what are we now? He gave a tired smile. Something new. Far above, the Council's ships were already entering the planet's orbit. A deep voice echoed through their communication channel. Target confirmed. Human subject showing neural contamination. Begin termination protocol. The stars began to fade behind the shadow of descending warships. Raylan loaded his pistol, his eyes hard. They're coming, he said. And they'll regret it. The sky above Epsilon 9 burned like molten metal. The first Council warships pierced through the clouds, their black hulls glowing red from re-entry. Each carried enough firepower to level a city. They were not coming to talk. They were coming to erase. Down in the canyon, Raylan Holt packed the last of his gear. His metal arm hissed as it locked into combat mode. The quiet engineer had become a soldier again. But this time he wasn't fighting for orders. He was fighting for her. Lyra stood at the canyon's edge, the wind whipping her silver hair. She could see the ships descending, shining predators in the dawn sky. Her chest tightened. So many, she whispered. They will kill you. Raylan gave a dry smile. They'll have to catch me first. He tossed her a small bag of power cells. Keep those close. If anything happens to me, run east. There's a storm line. The scanners can't track through it. She looked at him with fear and trust all mixed together. I don't run. Not from them. He opened his mouth to argue, but the air cracked with a thunderous boom. A missile exploded nearby, shaking the ground. Sand and rocks flew into the air. Lyra screamed as the canyon wall split. Raylan grabbed her, pulling her behind a boulder. His pulse was racing, his mind filled with battle instincts he thought he'd buried long ago. "Stay down," he ordered. Above them, small drones poured out of the ships like metal insects. They scanned the canyon, their lenses glowing red. Lyra closed her eyes. "I can feel them," she whispered, like cold voices. Raylan peeked from cover. "Can you stop them?" She hesitated. "I don't know." "Then find out." Lyra took a deep breath. The glowing lines on her skin brightened again. Her hands trembled as she focused. The air began to vibrate and the nearest drones paused mid-air. Confused, their signals tangled. Raylan used the moment. He aimed and fired. One drone shattered in a burst of sparks. Another fell smoking to the ground, but there were too many. For every one destroyed, 2 more replaced it. Then came the voice, deep and mechanical, echoing from the council ship above. "Human subject Raylan Holt. Surrender immediately." "Neural contamination detected," Raylan shouted back. "If caring for someone is contamination, then I'm guilty." The voice continued, calm and cold. "You threaten the balance of the galaxy. The bond must be purged." Lyra clutched her chest, pain shooting through her. "Raylan, they're trying to break it. I feel them inside my mind." Raylan moved to her side, gripping her shoulders. "Stay with me, Lyra. Focus on me." Her silver eyes met his, and something powerful surged between them. The bond flared bright blue, lighting up the entire canyon. Every rock, every grain of sand glowed for an instant. The attacking drones froze mid-air. Their systems overloaded as if struck by lightning. One by one, they fell. Up above, inside the lead ship, the council commander shouted, "Impossible! The merge phase has begun." But on the ground, Raylan didn't hear them. His mind was somewhere else, inside the bond. For a heartbeat, he saw what Lyra saw. Stars, energy, ancient symbols. And she saw him, the human will that refused to surrender. They were becoming one. Lyra gasped as light poured from her eyes. Her voice echoed in 2 tones, hers and his mixed together. "They fear this," she said. "Not because it destroys, but because it unites." Raylan could barely stand. The power burned through him, both beautiful and terrible. "Then let's give them something to fear," he whispered. He aimed his pistol at the sky, but this time it wasn't just a weapon. The energy from the bond flowed into it, turning the gun's barrel white-hot. When he fired, a bolt of blue energy shot upward, tearing through the lower hull of a council ship. The explosion lit the sky like a second sunrise. The ship fell in flames. Lyra collapsed, weak and pale. Raylan caught her before she hit the ground. "Stay with me," he said, his voice breaking. She smiled faintly.
"You keep
saving me. And I'm not stopping now." The remaining ships regrouped in the clouds. A metallic voice echoed again, shaking the canyon. "Bond cannot be allowed to stabilize. Initiate planet purge." Raylan's eyes widened. He knew what that meant. Total annihilation. He looked down at Lyra, her hand glowing weakly against his chest. "They're going to burn everything," he said. Her whisper was barely audible. "Then we run to the storm," he nodded. "To the storm, then." Together they turned toward the east, where lightning flashed across the horizon like the heartbeat of a dying world. Behind them, the council fleet charged their weapons, but as the first energy beam cut through the sky, Lyra's eyes opened again, glowing brighter than ever. The bond pulsed once, so strong it cracked the canyon walls, and for a moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. The eastern horizon flashed with white fire. A massive electric storm raged across the desert, stretching for miles. Bolts of lightning struck the ground like claws from heaven. The sky roared. Sand rose in waves, swallowing everything. Raylan Holt drove the broken rover straight toward it. The engine screamed, metal plates shaking apart. Behind them, the council's warships followed, beams cutting through the clouds. Beside him, Lyra clutched her chest, her skin glowing brighter with every mile. The bond was pulsing again, faster, hotter, almost alive. "Hold on," Raylan shouted above the thunder. "Once we enter the storm, their scanners can't find us." Lyra's voice trembled. "But the lightning, its energy, wild energy, it will burn us." He gave a small, fierce grin. "Then we'll burn together." The rover plunged into the wall of lightning. Blue fire exploded around them. Everything turned to blinding light. For a few terrible seconds, Raylan felt weightless. The world vanished, no sound, no air, only light and Lyra's voice inside his head whispering, "Don't let go." Then came darkness. When Raylan opened his eyes, the storm was still raging, but differently. The colors had changed. Bolts of light hung frozen in the air, unmoving. The sand floated upward like dust caught in water. They weren't in the storm anymore. They were inside it. Lyra stood beside him, glowing brighter than ever. Her silver eyes were pure light now. She looked both terrified and amazed. This isn't normal space," she said softly. "It's a fracture between worlds." Raylan blinked. "Oh, what?" She pointed upward. Above them, the sky rippled like liquid glass. Through it, shapes moved, faces, memories, whole galaxies bending and twisting. "When our bond reached its peak, it opened something," she whispered. "A bridge between minds. Not just ours." Raylan stared, stunned. "You mean?" "Yes," she said. "This is where all consciousness connects. The place between souls. The storm of souls." Raylan felt dizzy. The air itself hummed with voices. Millions, maybe billions, echoes of beings across the galaxy. Some whispered in sadness, others in rage, some in hope. He felt their fear, their love, their pain, and beneath all that noise, one cold signal pulsed like a heartbeat of steel. Human contamination spreading. Terminate origin, the council. Even here, their machines had followed. A shadow formed in the distance, tall, humanoid, made of silver smoke and mechanical parts. Its voice was the same one that had called for their deaths. "End the bond, or all life linked to it will collapse." Lyra stepped forward, trembling but brave. "No, the bond connects us, it doesn't destroy." The figure raised a hand and lightning coiled around it like a whip. "Then prove it." The whip struck the ground, sending a shockwave through the storm. Raylan was thrown back. Lyra cried out as energy tore through her body. Her glow dimmed. "Lyra!" Raylan shouted, crawling toward her. She reached for him weakly. "It's inside me." "The storm, it's feeding on the bond." He grabbed her hand. "Then take it back. You said this place connects souls, right? Then use it. Show them what we are." Her eyes widened. "I can't control it alone." "You're not alone." The bond flared again, stronger than ever before. The light around them shifted from blue to pure white. Every voice in the storm went silent, watching. Raylan felt his mind open completely. He saw Lyra's memories, her birth on a floating city, the day her people turned away from her, the loneliness that never ended. She saw his too, the war, the silence after it, the years of guilt. Their pain mixed, then melted into something greater. They rose from the ground, surrounded by spirals of light. The storm's lightning bent toward them instead of striking. Energy wrapped around their bodies like wings. The shadow figure tried to strike again, but the lightning passed through them harmlessly. The storm itself was obeying them. Lyra's voice echoed through the storm, clear and powerful. "This bond is not a weapon. It's life." And with a wave of her hand, the storm exploded outward. The council's signal vanished. The shadow disintegrated. When the light faded, Raylan and Lyra stood alone under a quiet sky. The desert was still. The warships above were gone. The storm had ended. Lyra looked around, dazed. We stopped it?" Raylan nodded slowly. "No, you did," she smiled faintly. "No, Raylan. We did." But as the calm settled, she staggered. Her glow flickered. "Lyra?" She smiled sadly. "The bond took too much. I can feel it fading." Raylan shook his head. "No, stay with me. We're not done yet." Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Even if I fade, I'll be in you." "The bond never dies." She touched his chest. The light from her hand sank into him, warm, alive, eternal. Then she closed her eyes. The glow faded. Raylan fell to his knees, holding her still form as dawn broke across the sand. Above, the first light of a new day touched the world she had saved, and somewhere deep inside him a faint voice whispered, "I'm still here." The desert was silent again. The warships had vanished. The sky once filled with fire and thunder now stretched wide and peaceful. Only one man remained standing. Raylan Holt, holding the lifeless body of Lyra in his arms. Her skin no longer glowed. The blue lines that once danced with energy had turned pale, fading into nothing. She looked almost human now, fragile, calm, asleep. Raylan knelt in the sand. The wind brushed against his face, but he didn't feel it. His hands trembled as he touched her cheek. "You said you'd stay." he whispered, voice breaking. There was no answer. Only the sound of the wind carrying dust across the dunes. He sat there for hours, maybe longer. The sun rose higher, turning the sand golden. His mind felt empty. The galaxy could have ended right then and he wouldn't have noticed. Then, somewhere deep inside him, a soft pulse echoed. Thump. Raylan blinked. It wasn't his heartbeat. It was something else. Thump. Thump. He felt it in his chest, on a faint but steady like a whisper of light. Lyra. He breathed. Her body didn't move, but warmth spread from where she had touched him. His metal arm began to glow faintly blue, the same shade as her old energy. And then he heard her voice, not outside, but within. Told you. I'd never leave. Raylan gasped, his eyes wide. You're alive? Not like before, her voice said gently. Part of me is gone. But the bond, it saved what mattered. He stood slowly, looking around. The air shimmered faintly, and for an instant he saw her, not as flesh and blood, but as light. Lyra's form hovered above the sand, transparent and shining. You merged with me, Raylan whispered in awe. She smiled, glowing softly. Our minds became one. My body couldn't hold it, but your heart could. He reached out to touch her, but his hand passed through the light. You kept me alive, Raylan, she said. Now I can do the same for you. Before he could reply, a distant rumble echoed. The horizon shimmered again. The Council's ships were returning, regrouping after the storm. Raylan clenched his fists. They'll destroy this planet if they find out you're still here. Lyra's voice was calm, almost serene. Then we make sure they don't. The bond flared once more, brighter than ever. Blue light burst from Raylan's body, forming a halo around him. His mechanical arm transformed, reshaping itself with alien energy. Circuits pulsed like living veins. You're not just human anymore, Lyra's voice said. We're something new, something they can't erase. He felt her thoughts moving through his, guiding him. Together they reached for the storm that still lingered at the edge of the horizon. The storm of souls responded, drawn to them like a living force. Lightning arced across the sky. The Council's ships fired beams of plasma, but before they could hit, the storm bent and swallowed the energy whole. Raylan lifted his glowing arm toward the sky. Let's finish this, Lyra, the bond surged. The storm obeyed. Bolts of pure light shot upward, striking the warships one by one. They exploded silently, swallowed by the white glow. The desert trembled. When the light finally faded, the sky was clear. No ships, no smoke, only peace. Raylan collapsed to his knees, exhausted. The glow around him dimmed, though his eyes still shimmered faintly blue. We did it, he said weakly. Lyra's voice was warm in his mind. You did it. Humanity did. You showed them what connection means. He looked up at the stars. They'll come again, won't they? Yes, she said softly. But this time they'll face something they can't destroy. Understanding. He smiled faintly. You sound like a teacher now. You taught me, she replied, what it means to be alive. Years passed. Epsilon 9 slowly healed. The colony that once feared aliens now built new cities under open skies. Humans and other species worked side by side. Guided by a story that became legend, the story of the bond that changed the stars. At the heart of the rebuilt observatory stood a statue, a man with a metal arm holding the hand of a small alien child. Both looking up at the sky, they said sometimes, when the night was quiet and the wind passed over the desert, you could hear faint whispers in the air, a human voice and a soft alien laugh, echoing together. And somewhere beyond the stars, Raylan's ship flew again, its engines glowing with blue fire. Inside, his voice spoke softly to the light that lived within him. Still with me, Lyra? Always, she whispered. As long as stars shine, the bond pulsed once, calm, endless, alive. The light never dies.